What is up, guys? Welcome into this week's episode of Pickup Sports Talk. I'm Spencer Stein.
And I'm Brandon Schiffman. Really quickly in advance, there's a little bug going around, so I'm sorry if I'm coughing or sniffling a little bit. I made sure to pop out here for you guys. There's a ton to get to in sports today.
Yeah.
You want to just dive right in with NFL?
I'm really excited about college sports going on. We'll get to that after. We're also going to have a World Cup clip on its own. And next week, we'll be back in Florida for our Thanksgiving episode. But yeah, let's jump in with NFL. I just really want to talk about a couple games this week. I think it was the best week of football this year from a viewer's perspective, but not many huge storylines. As the season goes on, gets more big picture. So we'll talk about our Bears first.
Yep.
Lost a tough game, 31-30 against the Lions. What do you think about our output that game?
So overall, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about the way the team played. I mean, our defense was coming into the game. We knew it was going to be questionable. We got basically torched by Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Specifically.
All game. That was about it. Khalif Raymond had a few receptions.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams had a pretty good game for the Lions, but let's get to our Bears. I think that's the more fun part to talk about.
I mean, Justin Fields won FedEx Ground Player of the Week. That's the headliner.
Yeah.
Is that he's now gone for north of 147 yards 2 weeks in a row.
Exactly right.
He's an incredible runner. I think he's right up there officially with Lamar.
For sure.
But the difference between Lamar and Fields is that Fields is a pass-first player. So no need to talk about Justin a lot every week. I like what I'm seeing.
For sure.
What I realized, and the defense did what I expected. It's a shame Khalil Herbert's going to be out because I think he's the future of our running game.
For sure.
Cole Kmet's finally coming into his own. I think
5 touchdowns the last 3 games.
I think he could be our tight end of the future, Cole Kmet. I really do. But what I want to say is this. I'm glad we lost that game. I was watching the Bears, I couldn't help but root for them to win. But each time we didn't score, I said that's actually good. And I honestly almost rooted for the Lions to score. I'd much rather have this draft pick. The question I have for you, Brandon, is where's this line of wanting to lose for the draft pick, but also wanting the team to look good and like Fields not to get disgruntled? Because realistically, if Santos makes the extra point, which he missed the only reason we lost the game, we go to overtime. And let's say we win by a field goal in overtime. It's great for morale. But like the team wouldn't look any better based on one extra point. So do you wish he made that extra point or not?
So this kind of segues into something I wanted to talk about. It's kind of a hot take I have. I'm nervous about the Bears and our future, and here's why. This season, I get that this season's our rebuild year, but in one-score games, we're 1-5. Yeah. That's very sloppy, and I get that we're going to get a lot better in time because it's a rebuild. But who's to say that this couldn't be a trend that continues?
Because we're not supposed to be winning now. The fact that we've had 6 one-score games is impressive.
1-5 in one-score games is just it doesn't matter if your team's the worst in the league or the best in the league. That's awful.
I mean, but here's what I could go through. The Giants' loss came down to a fumble. The Vikings' loss came down to a fumble. And the Commanders' loss looked like crap.
It's just
the big change.
It's messy, though.
No, but the change, so that's 3. And I think of this Bears season as 2 different. After the Commanders game and before it. Because that week it was a Thursday night game, and the next week we played on Monday night against New England. They're calling it a mini-bye.
Yeah.
And during that mini-bye week, Luke Getsy, Ryan Poles, Justin Fields, and Matt Eberflus figured out what Justin Fields' plan is going to be, and he's looked like a different player since then.
Yep.
Up until that game, there were question marks about if he's the future, and since then, he has dominated. So I count that as a different season. Looking at it since then, we're 1-1. Or 0-2, I mean. And the Lions game was because of an extra point, and the Dolphins game, the fact that we only lost by 3 is impressive. So I have no complaints.
What I'm saying is I'm just worried that this could become a trend, and it's something that I don't want to see become a trend for us.
I am not worried. Nothing that happens this season I have any cares about except for how the players look, and they look fine. And I don't think he's looked any bad in clutch time. Same with last week. Fields was actually good on that last drive. There was a bad drop back when Amon-Ra St. Brown. But back to my question. If you could go back and make the extra point, do you?
I mean, in the moment I wanted to, but it really depends on what record we wind up with. Right now, we're tied for the worst team in the NFC. I think overall we're ranked the lowest because we have the...
I think we're lined up to have the 6th pick as of now.
Which is nice. So I think that at the end of the day, you just kind of have to look at it with the future in mind. But with that being said, I really just hope that these guys on our team aren't getting their hopes up or getting frustrated.
I agree. I just think it'd be good for Justin to get a few wins. Ideally for me, I'd like us to win this week in Atlanta, and I'd like us to beat Green Bay. There's nothing else I really want this year.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Monday Night Football.
Yep.
By the way, because if we could get that draft pick, Jalen Carter would be amazing. To have Will Anderson, either two of those guys, I'd be thrilled. And if we could get a top pick, we could get Northwestern's offensive lineman Skoronski, or we could get Penn State. I'm blanking on his name. Olu. So let's move on to Monday Night Football. Eagles got their first loss. They're 8-1 now.
Yep.
First, I want to ask you this. Similar to the Bears, is it good they lost? Because I think the more and more teams are undefeated, like that seeps into the locker room, becomes a bigger storyline. So you think it's good they lost?
I don't think it's good that they lost. I get that AJ Brown was it's great that we lost because now all the 17-0 stuff's over. But at the same time, I feel like you just as a team you want to win. yes, it might add some pressure, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be the same team. It's not like a record's going to impact the way you're thinking about yourselves necessarily.
It's not good to have lost this game because you're fighting for the 1 seed. Minnesota now only has 1 loss.
Yeah.
However, if there's any game to lose, it's now, because after you get to 9-0, that's really when the conversations start. Now there's less pressure on them, but obviously you don't want to lose a game.
Yeah.
But I think the storyline for the Eagles this game, 4 turnovers. Before this game, they had 3 in the whole season.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something they should worry about? Is this an outlier game? Are they still the best team in the NFC?
I think it is somewhat problematic, but with that being said, if I had to take any team in the NFC outright, I'd take the Eagles. So it is kind of a problem. But with that being said, I'm still just as confident in them as I was before.
And Miles Sanders also didn't look great. Yeah, this really came down to A.J. Brown not being himself and the turnovers. I think the Eagles should be fine. This is an outlier in my opinion. The reason we'll talk about Minnesota now.
Yeah.
So the reason I think you can't outright say are the Eagles the best team in the NFC is because Minnesota's there. 2 teams this year preseason I had as sleepers. They're both looking as good as I thought they would. They won in Buffalo 33-30 in what has been the craziest game of the season.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched the highlights, go watch them. I'm not even going to try and explain them. Basically, Josh Allen fumbled on his own goal line with 30 seconds. Vikings recovered it for a touchdown. Then he drove him down the field to tie it, and then the Vikings won in OT because Josh Allen threw an interception. He now leads the league in interceptions. I think we overrate Josh Allen. I truly do. And I think this Bills team is no longer outright AFC favorites. I actually favor the Chiefs slightly over them.
Yeah, I think that the Chiefs, I think it's really close. Here's the thing also. Before we say, like, oh, Josh Allen's super overrated, you have to remember.
It's not super overrated. But.
Some of the best quarterbacks of all time have had interception problems. You have to also look.
Who? Like
Peyton Manning.
I know, but he's having a turnover problem. He's still dynamic. I'd still probably say he's the second best quarterback in football, but he's turning it over now, and it's causing him to lose games.
Exactly. That's the issue.
And Peyton Manning didn't get a Super Bowl. He was seen as a guy who couldn't win the playoffs at all, and I think Josh Allen could turn into someone like that. I really think that this year, the Bills came into the year, looked like the utter favorites. They dominated, rolled past everyone.
Now
they have 2 division losses, by the way. And now they've lost to Minnesota, which is another great team in a close game. It's like they might not be as dominant in late close games as we thought they would. And Diggs still had 12 receptions, 128 yards. And it came down to their defense didn't play as well as we thought they could. Justin Jefferson kind of went all over them, 193 yards. And Josh Allen's turnover problem. And I truly think that that's going to plague him in the playoffs, and I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue. I think Buffalo, when the time comes, I mean, mind you, I don't know what's going to happen, but if I had to say right now, I think that they'll pull it together. I don't know necessarily that they're winning the Super Bowl or even the AFC, but I think that by the time the playoffs come around, they'll be in a better form than they are right now.
And I think if they can make it out of the AFC, they should probably win the Super Bowl. I'd still favor them over the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Niners, who I love, I'll talk about. But realistically, I don't know if it's a lock they win their division. Miami looks great. They have Buffalo's 0-2 in their division right now. We'll see what happens. But I think they're no longer a lock there. And if they don't have the bye, if they don't have the home field in Buffalo, if they have to go play in Kansas City, I favor KC. Sure. Baltimore's good, Miami's good. So I think Buffalo fans, this is the first time I could say it's time to worry.
Yeah, I don't think it's panic time, but it's time to be put on notice for sure.
Yeah.
The next game I want to get to is actually this is kind of upsetting. The Packers won a game.
I know.
Just frustrating. I think they stopped 5-game losing streak. Beat the Cowboys in OT. So 31-28. You want to quickly talk about the game?
Yeah, I mean, I want to pair this with the Buccaneers game. I know the Buccaneers have now won 2 in a row, but really, I want to ask you if I'm going to talk about if either of these teams can compete with Rodgers and Brady. I talked about a few weeks ago, I think they've fallen off. And I still really don't trust Aaron Rodgers. And I still think Brady's not the same quarterback he's been his whole career, but this Bucs team is good. But I realistically don't put these teams in the same tier whatsoever as Philly, Minnesota, San Fran, or Dallas. I put those at top 4. Then I probably put the Buccaneers. The Packers the Buccaneers should still be able to win their division.
For sure.
They should make it to the playoffs. And when you see Tom Brady in the playoffs, if the defense can rebound, you always give them a chance. But their running game is completely changed. Rashad White's probably the RB1 there. Yep. Their O-line does not look good. Their defense is still banged up. And Tom Brady's no longer himself. So I still, despite this win, 5 points, by the way, in Germany against Seattle, doesn't tell me much about the team except that now they're finally looking good late game. Same with Green Bay.
Yeah.
them winning a game is huge because without them winning this one, they were definitely out. It's interesting they won against a good Cowboys team. I actually think it was more bad Cowboys as good as their offense was. Their defense underwhelmed me, but I think the Packers, I think Aaron Rodgers can still be the old Aaron Rodgers, and Christian Watson is a huge part of that. If he could stay in that offense, they could string together some wins. Their schedule is not particularly difficult, but with the fact that they're not going to win the NFC North and there's 3 wildcard spots, and you think that Dallas will most definitely get one, probably Seattle. It's like the Giants are going to have to get a losing streak. They're going to have they don't control their own destiny is what I'm trying to say, and that's an issue.
They're now in a spot where other teams control what's going to happen to them, which is scary. I personally just want to say about the Buccaneers, having Brady be like a dark horse coming into the playoffs is definitely something that could be scary for other teams just because we haven't seen this in a while.
And I mean, similar to their Super Bowl run, but this team is just nowhere near as talented. By the way, I misspoke about the Packers. Their schedule's actually tough. I said last week I doubt they even win 3 more games. They've won 1, but coming up, Tennessee tonight, which we'll predict in a second, but I don't know if they're coming away with that. Followed by at the Eagles in Chicago. I predicted preseason they lose that. Rams should be a winnable game at home, but then on the road in Miami, they have Minnesota and Detroit. So the Packers are going to need to string together some important wins against good teams, change everything around. So let's, about the NFC. The Niners won 2. They looked great in my opinion. Who's your favorite in the NFC?
As of right now, just overall.
Give me what team's making the Super Bowl out of the NFC halfway through the season.
I mean, I predicted the Vikings to make the NFC Championship, and they've been hot. So, like, part of me is tempted to go there, but I think I have to go with the team that's been the best team in the league for the most of the season, which has been the Philadelphia Eagles as of right now.
The Eagles should be the favorite, but I think it's the San Francisco 49ers. I've been high on them for years. Realistically, the only spot I really like the Eagles a lot more than the Niners is quarterback, and at the same time, Jimmy G knows how to win games, and he knows how to win games in the playoffs. And Hurts showed us Monday night a lot. Before Monday night, I honestly had the Eagles as the favorite, but this week changed a lot in my mind. The Eagles may have a better offensive line,
also,
but the 49ers
defense too.
Well, yeah, no, but the 49ers scheme is where I give them a huge advantage. The fact that they have Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Kittle, they probably have their receivers are just as good, but the fact that they could use it on Shanahan's scheme with McCaffrey, their offense is very scary to me, and same thing with defense. The Eagles are better on paper. They've looked good. I think in the playoffs, I still trust them to be better, but the Niners have a really good team chemistry on defense.
Sure.
They have Bosa and Warner. I really think that the 49ers are more well-built for the playoffs. Both teams are great. The Eagles are better right now, but I think this 49ers team, led by Shanahan's scheme, led by the defense that's done it before, with McCaffrey, Deebo, Ayuk, and Kittle, I think this team is more well-built to make a run. I think those are the 2 best teams in the NFC. Dallas, I realistically see faltering as the season progresses. And Minnesota, I think, is very good. They're very dangerous, but their games have been close, and they have a first-year head coach. I don't know if they're going to be able to get done in the playoffs. I have Sam Fran. I'm saying that now. It's going to come together.
Yeah, I was going to say about Dallas. I've seen them do a lot less than what people expect them to do with a lot better teams, so that's why.
And something interesting, by the way, San Francisco is still giving carries to Elijah Mitchell, but yeah, Dallas has done a lot less with more. One more game I want to talk about. We talked about Jeff Saturday last week. He won.
It's weird.
Do you still think it's a bad hire?
I mean, it's the Raiders. Congrats to Jeff Saturday on getting his first NFL win. First of all, he beat the 2-7 Raiders, who are now in a 3-game losing streak. I still think the win's meaningful. I really do, and this is as someone who didn't like the hire. But it'd be one thing if he beat a team that's been competent this year.
You're not getting a coordinator that's really good at their job midseason. No one's leaving. You're hiring someone in office if you need one. Why not take a chance on Jeff Saturday? No coordinator's talented enough to be a head coach in Indy. I think it was a great hire. Gives them a much higher ceiling. And by the way, they can still win that division. And realistically, any coach you hire that's legit, you're setting them up for failure. Like, you're not giving them a fair chance. So I think and it's not like they hired Saturday long term. This is not a desirable job. You're giving a guy the head coaching gig for 8 games. I think, honestly, it's not that horrible that they gave it to Jeff Saturday, and he proved that with the win. Brandon, I want to move on to college football.
Yep.
This weekend, we had a couple of big upsets. We have a big Pac-12 weekend, at least, coming up before the last biggest week. And we're going to get into a Heisman conversation. But I want to start TCU's win over Texas. I picked them. They weren't the favorites. I think they should have been the favorites. They looked like the better team all game.
Yeah, they did. I think it's definitely disheartening for the Texas Longhorns. I think that it's definitely caused some problems within their locker room from what I'm hearing. I'm hearing some buzz about that. But yeah, TCU just looked like the better team.
I mean, this game wasn't about Texas. It was about TCU. It was low scoring the whole game. What happened was they were able to make plays. Miller had a huge run. Duggan stayed in it. He didn't throw an interception, where even though he didn't have that great of a game, he played mistakeless football, while Ewers was the opposite. He had no touchdowns and interception. That's what it came down to, and they had a touchdown late to go up, I think, 17-3, and they needed that one to get the insurance touchdown. TCU's legit.
Yeah.
And I think ESPN gave them a 4% chance to go undefeated before this game. Now they have 2 games coming up. I think it's Baylor. They have the conference championship, and they'll have Iowa State. They've clinched a spot in the conference championship. Do they need to stay undefeated to make the playoff, and will they go undefeated?
I think that they do need to stay undefeated to make the playoff, just because I think that the committee would look more favorably upon the loser of Michigan, Ohio State than a one-loss TCU, personally speaking.
I don't see why, by the way.
I'll go back to what I was saying. I think that TCU, with that being said, I think that they will go undefeated, though. I think Baylor and Iowa State both present competition, but I think TCU has beaten better teams, so that's why
I agree. I'm going to pick them against Baylor in our best bets. I think that they're the better team. They've won on the road before. This is a big example. Iowa State's not tough, and I think it's at home. And the Big 12 championship, whatever team they play is probably more in shambles, and then they're complete. If they don't go undefeated, though, and by the way, if they go undefeated, they should be a lock. If they don't go undefeated, I don't see why not put them over a one-loss Michigan team. I thought they should have been ranked, actually, ahead of Michigan this week because they have much bigger wins. Oh, yeah, sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
I was saying that's bold, that's all.
And so I think that they still can. I'd still put them in over a one-loss Clemson. I don't know if the committee would. The committee loves Clemson. And probably a one-loss USC, so I don't see the issue. Realistically, they do need to run the table to get in.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Pac-12 bit, Brandon.
Yep.
Oregon lost.
Yes,
they were our team out of the Pac-12. UCLA lost. They had 1 loss. So
UCLA's loss was
horrible. And they've looked bad. So now each of those teams have 2 losses. Utah has 2 losses.
Yep.
Would you say it's true the only team that can make it out is USC?
As of right now, yes. I genuinely believe that, and I know that that's something that people might argue, but in my head, there are just too many teams with 1 loss or no losses to a point where that doesn't make sense.
This is going to be a crazy season. I'm going to talk about it one more time. Here's what's going to come down to. We have 2 locks. We have Georgia and winner of Ohio State, Michigan.
Yes.
For the other 2 spots, you're fighting probably, let's say TCU goes undefeated. The last spot is a 1-loss Tennessee with a win against Bama, 1-loss USC, let's say if they win, a 1-loss Michigan if they lose to only Ohio State, and like a 1-loss ACC champion. I think I favor Tennessee out of there, and I think if TCU gets the 1 loss, it'll probably be Michigan. So I think Tennessee is next in line to get in, followed by Michigan.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that the biggest question to me would be, if Michigan beats Ohio State, which is something I'm definitely going to be rooting for, would Ohio State get it over Tennessee?
I take 1 loss Tennessee, but I think they could both get in.
Yep.
But that's me saying that the ACC and the Pac-12 I think are doomed.
Yeah.
And I think TCU's the Big 12's only chance.
I agree.
So Oregon looked horrible. Bo Nix looked bad, so they're done with. DTR is obviously disappointed.
Yep.
Let's predict this week because we have the 4 best teams in the Pac-12 playing each other. You have Utah at Oregon, you have USC at UCLA. Brandon, who you've gotten these games?
So when I first looked at these games this morning, I forgot that Oregon lost to Washington. I was like, you know what? I've been Utah's top sailor all year. You know what? Let's keep it up. You know what? I remember the game and I was like, can't do that. Okay, Utah's going to dominate this team. I think Oregon.
Whoa!
I think Oregon.
Wow.
I think Oregon right now is in a bad spot. After losing this game, I think morale's down. The Bo Nix hot streak has officially ended. I think Utah shows up today. This week.
Washington's not a bad team. Bo Nix wasn't that bad. It's that Michael Penix was that good. Indiana transfer. I was going to pick Utah too. You've kind of stunned me. I think Oregon should be favored even though they're not. It's a home game for them. And it will come down to if Bo Nix can really play at the level to score enough points to win a game. Something that Caleb Williams could almost do. I'm taking Utah too, but I was hoping you'd pick Oregon because I think Oregon actually should be favored. How about the battle for LA, USC, UCLA? USC's got to win this game to stay undefeated.
I was going to say, I think USC understands how big this game is and how much it means to them. So I think that they're going to come out and win this game. I think that it's going to be a great game, though. I generally think this one could be a bloodbath.
Yeah, I think both teams have won a lot of games but haven't looked good for me in the last few weeks. I've watched a lot of both of these teams.
Yep.
And realistically, for some reason, I trust USC less to win a big game. Even though they've looked slightly better than UCLA, I feel like UCLA is more up to the challenge. But saying that, USC is a better team. I think after that Utah loss, they know how to play in a big game, and they might be able to win it. I'm sticking with USC. I think it's the safe pick. I don't think it's a lock at all. This game makes me very nervous, but I'm going to go USC. Realistically, as I said earlier, none will make the playoff. Let's talk about the Heisman race, Brandon.
Yep.
So North Carolina first beat Wake Forest by 2 points. Yep. Drake May has absolutely been going off. He's been left out of the Heisman conversation. I want to start with this. Is there any reason you think UNC is ranked 13 and Clemson's 9?
I think that the committee has a reason. With that being said, I think it's a bad reason. I think UNC has looked absolutely great this year, and despite the fact that they both only have 1 loss, I think the UNC...
And it's the same loss, too.
Yeah, I think UNC has been more impressive recently, which means more. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
I mean, it's the same loss, and
Exactly.
UNC has a better quarterback so far, so I don't see why they wouldn't be neck and neck. It's so biased. But let's talk about Drake May.
Yep.
He has a one-loss team.
Yep.
He has some of the best stats in college
As a true
football
freshman.
as a true freshman.
Yep.
Why isn't he the Heisman favorite?
That's
or
the thing.
second?
That's the thing that bothers me, and I don't know if it's whether it's just because he's in the ACC and they get less coverage than a lot of these other big conferences. But whatever the case may be, I'm disappointed about it because he's been great this year, and it seems like he's not getting the attention he deserves.
3,400 yards, 34 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Wow.
Yep.
What is your top 5 Heisman?
So as of today, my top 5 is Stroud, Corum, Hooker, May, Dugan.
Okay. Stroud's incredibly overrated. He actually has less
He had 5 touchdowns this week.
I know, but he has
Good week.
I'm comparing him to Dugan. Both teams are undefeated. TCU might have a better resume, and yes, Stroud has more yards, but it's also on more attempts. So I don't
that's
really
true,
see the
yeah.
issue with that. And I think Stroud's incredibly overrated. It's crazy. He's even odds on FanDuel. I think Hooker's the favorite. He's really done the most of all the quarterbacks. He's brought a team that was so least expected. He's had bigger wins. And I've just really hated on both Big Ten teams this year. I think they're overrated. Hooker's my 1. Stroud has to be my 2 for that reason, even though I would personally vote Drake May over him. Corum's the 4, because even though I think he's overrated as well, just like his team.
I think you're just a Big Ten hater.
I mean, the Penn State game, for example, where Corum ran all over them, he wasn't being touched. Like, I was at that game. He wasn't being touched.
You can't
I
hold
know,
that
I'm
against
not.
him.
I mean,
He
he's
was-
my 4.
He had a masterclass.
He's
game.
my 4, but I don't think he has a chance at winning it. When we've seen running backs who've won it, he's nowhere near any of them. Like, when you're looking, like, it's, I guess, somewhat comparable to Mark Ingram's season, but Derrick Henry was much better than him. He's my 4, and Dugan's my 5. I think when we're looking at who's going to realistically going to go to New York, Stroud's a lock, Hooker's a lot. I think the 3's probably be Corum because they like to throw a non-quarterback in there. But if Michigan loses and TCU wins, it could be Dugan. Regardless, they're going to give it to Stroud. It's set in stone. If Ohio State wins, Stroud's getting it. If he doesn't, probably Hooker. But realistically, Hooker and May, I think, both have better resumes than Stroud, and they look better to me.
I'm going to give you a hot take here. So I have the same top 3 as you. Same 3 making it to New York. It's going to be CJ Stroud, Blake Corum, and Hendon Hooker. Last year, Michigan, Ohio State, they did not want Cade passing the ball.
No.
They gave the ball whenever they had the opportunity to Hassan Haskins.
Yeah.
He went crazy. Up until, I want to say, maybe week 6 of last year, Corum was their lead back. Hassan Haskins wound up winning the backfield.
Yeah, why can't Donovan Edwards win it this year?
That's not going to happen. What is going to happen, they're going to feed Corum. JJ hasn't looked great the past few weeks. They're going to feed Corum, especially in their biggest game of the year.
And you know what? It's not going to work.
I think Michigan beats Ohio State
Wow.
on Corum's back. And I think that brings in a ton of recency bias into the whole thing. And I just think overall people are going to look back at the year and they're going to see the great game against Ohio State and how good he's done in some of their biggest games.
It's quite possible that happens. But and I know running backs win it commonly and defensive players never do, but Hutchinson was nowhere near winning it last year. I know it's very different situations,
Definitely.
but I don't think Corum is as good as any of these quarterbacks in it. And I think to be a running back and win it, you have to be that incredible. And there's an argument that Gibbs or Bijan have been just as good as Corum or nearly, and that Corum's talent's not there. If he can do that against Ohio State, if he really goes off for 2 touchdowns, 150 yards, and they can win a game.
I think it could be more than that potentially.
If he could do that,
Yeah.
he's in the conversation. I'd still probably slightly favor Hooker. That's not going to happen. Ohio State's defense is going to come in and play well. The only chance Michigan has is to win 17-14. That's my opinion. We'll talk more about Michigan, Ohio State next week. But Brandon, let's get into quick predictions this week. There's no games I want to hit. Just give me your upset pick and best bet.
My upset pick personally, Oklahoma State over Oklahoma. I get this is a Big 12 matchup. Both teams are kind of out of the picture, but this one I saw the line and I saw that Oklahoma's favored. I disagree with that personally.
I mean, give me the Friday night game. Tulane, I'm picking them again, but against them this time. SMU has one of the best offenses in college football, 77-63 the other week ago. And Rashee Rice, by the way, is a guy that's on my radar as a Bears draft prospect. 2nd round pick. Him and Mordecai's connection's insane. They're going to torch that Tulane defense, which has actually looked decent. They're going to win it close in an upset on Friday night. My best bet, I'm going to go with mine first, is Oklahoma State, by the way. I liked that pick. I don't know how realistic it looks. They're going to win outright because Oklahoma State's underwhelmed me, but I think getting 7.5 in Norman's a good call, especially against a weak Oklahoma team. I'm going to go cheat and go with another best bet. TCU minus 2.5 at Baylor.
Yep.
Why are people not trusting them? I mean, Dave Aranda, there's rumors about him leaving Baylor. They've underwhelmed. TCU's undefeated. They found a way to win close games, even on the road, in tougher environments than Waco, Texas. I think TCU comes away with this game.
Mine personally, Michigan minus 18.5 over Illinois. Illinois has been good this year, don't get me wrong. But they lost Chase Brown. I think he's hurt. And Illinois just lost a couple heartbreakers in a row. I think that they've completely been derailed with their momentum. And I see Michigan's defense taking over.
And I hit them getting upset last week against Purdue. The only thing that worries me is I think this game's going to go under, and I think Michigan doesn't score a lot of points. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
But if this game's like 28-10, then you lose. So I don't like that many
true.
points.
Brandon,
Brandon, let's move on to college basketball.
Yep.
We'll keep this quick. Sorry for doing so much football, but I love college basketball.
Sure.
It's November. It's hard to watch and not think about this. Doesn't matter whatsoever. But a few big teams lost. We'll start with Texas. Blew out Gonzaga last night. Watched the game. Timmy got subbed out early even.
Yep.
That's how bad it was. Was this more the environment? Is this Gonzaga being overrated and once they get to the WAC, they dominate it, which they should? Or is this Texas being underrated?
I think it's a little bit of I think Texas as an 11 seed coming into the year was completely fair, or whatever this was ranked. I think Gonzaga's overrated. I think it's not a secret to anyone. Gonzaga always has these sky-high expectations and never quite make it to where you think they're going to go. With that being said, Tyrese Hunter had an absolutely great game.
Yeah.
Texas overall just has I think they have a lot of depth, and I think that they're a great team, and I think they earn their respect.
And by the way, Marcus Carr, I know this is his second year on Texas, but I like him a lot too, and I think they can be good, and I think they can compete in the Big 12. However, this is a mix of the environment, one of their first games at Moody, the Moody Stadium or whatever they call it, and Gonzaga being overrated.
Yeah.
Every year they come into the year overrated. Each year they get worse.
Yeah.
Last year they lost earlier than they have before. They're not making it far in the tournament. Their team is worse this year, by the way. Timmy should have gone to the draft when he could have. I don't think he's going to have a similar year to last year. And I think Texas will move up in the rankings, but Gonzaga should move down. Can't wait to see him against Kentucky this Saturday. I have Kentucky winning that game on Sheboy's back. Let's talk about Kentucky.
Yep.
They lost to Michigan State in double overtime.
Yep.
Michigan State almost beat Gonzaga, by the way, last week on a freaking boat.
That was so
shout
cool.
out to Michigan State.
I love those games. They should do more of those games.
I agree, but Kentucky lost is the headliner. Do
Yeah.
you, any reason to worry? I mean, you can't overreact this early.
Yeah, you can't freak out. Also, like you said, Sheboy's coming off the bench, I believe, for this game.
But what worries me about him is that he fouled out, actually.
Yeah.
Going into double overtime. If this game doesn't go, if Kentucky could score one more basket, they win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Michigan State knew if they could get Sheboy fouled out, they would
Yeah.
win. That's what it came down to. Kentucky's so reliant on Oscar. Being that reliant on a big guy, I think isn't necessarily a method for winning. Jacob Toppin underwhelmed me, but Wallace looked good. I watched this game end to end, though. It was phenomenal. And this Michigan State team really can't compete behind Hauser and Hall.
I was going to say, Michigan State had 4 over 14 points. That's a big deal in college basketball.
And I've always been looking out for Joey Hauser on this team. I hadn't heard of Malik Hall until this game. He impressed me a lot with his ability to score at all facets.
Yeah, for sure. Next game, Duke, Kansas. This is a real blue blood, that was a tongue twister. Blue blood matchup here. Kansas actually won this game behind some great performances out of Jalen Wilson. And Grady Dick kind of underwhelmed. He had 14. Actually, that's pretty good for a true.
I think Grady Dick's going to improve as the season goes on.
For sure.
And I still don't expect them to go far in March Madness. My opinion from a week ago hasn't changed. I'm not that overreacting. But Luke was right about Jalen Wilson. He's a good player. He can be the best player on this team, and they can make a Final Four run.
For sure, they're a fun team to watch, absolutely. And I just love watching Grady Dick as well. All right, let's move on to our NFL predictions for this week. So, you want to start with the Thursday night game?
I do want to start with the Thursday night game. I told you guys I don't like Green Bay.
Yep.
I talked a lot about how Tennessee's a good team, and I think Derrick Henry runs all over them.
Yeah.
My question is it enough? I think Green Bay has a really good chance in this game. I like what they did last week. I'm taking Derrick Henry's running to be enough. Give me Tennessee 24-21.
I'm going to take the Packers here, and I want to say 3-point game as well. I think this stays relatively low scoring, though.
Browns at Bills. This game's in Detroit. It got moved because of the 6 feet of snow. I really wanted to see it in Buffalo. Who you got?
Right now, I'm going to have to take the Bills. I know they're cold, but I still think that they're just outright the more talented team by far.
I was going to take the Browns getting points if it was in the snow. It's not. Give me Buffalo big. Eagles at Colts. Does Saturday get his second win?
I do not think so. I think the Eagles take this one by a field goal. I think it's close, though.
How about that Jeff Saturday has more wins than the Warriors on the road this year? That's nuts.
Wild.
He's going to be 1-1 after this. Give me the Eagles big. Jets at Patriots, Brandon. Big matchup in the AFC North. Best division in football, arguably. I mean, the AFC East. Who you got?
Jets upset. Give me that.
I agree.
Okay,
I like
perfect.
the Jets here. I think they finally best the Patriots. I think they've lost 13 in a row to them.
Mm-hmm. Rams, Saints. This one's tough for me. It's up in the air. This is going to be a boring game to watch. I think I'm going to actually have to take the Saints here. I
refuse to watch the Rams, especially with Cup out. Give me the Saints. The Rams are utterly atrocious. Disappointed me beyond belief.
Lions, Giants. Give me the Giants here. I mean, it's weird that they're 7-2 and make it 8-2.
I think the Lions' offense versus the Giants' defense thing to watch. I'm actually interested by this game. I want to see if last week was the Bears' defense or Amon-Ra being that good. I think the Giants take care of business, though, at home to get to 8-2. Shocking. Panthers at Ravens, Brandon. Two expansion teams.
Ravens by a blowout.
Yes. I think the Panthers cover the 13, but give me the Ravens still. Commanders at Texans. Another gross game this week. week's shaping up to be horrible before one of the better weeks in Thanksgiving. Give me the Texans in an upset, getting their second win.
I'm going to have to take the Commanders, having just beat the best team in the NFL. I think that they're going to beat the worst team in the
Actually,
NFL.
you're right. I'm wrong. I like that Heineke's still playing for them. I think Heineke should stay their quarterback over Wentz, by the way. Derek Carr and the Raiders in Denver. Who you got?
This is another just awful game. I'm going to have to take the Broncos, weirdly enough. I think they got the home field advantage.
I think the Raiders get a win. I want to talk about Derek Carr for a second. His speech after the game honestly broke my heart. Makes me love Derek Carr. He really does try so hard. I know a lot of guys they're doing. Winning football is just not coming. What makes me the most sad is that I think he deserves to win. He's never going to come close. Yeah. Just because him. Like, he's not a good enough quarterback to win a Super Bowl, and that's sad. It's not like he's a receiver that could go play with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp just to get a ring.
Guy.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the Raiders pick up a win after that. Cowboys at Vikings. Finally a good game. Dallas is favored in Minnesota.
Yeah, and that's wrong. I'll tell you why that's wrong, because the Vikings have been basically the second best team in the NFC all year. Vikings are winning this one by 7.
I think the Vikings come from behind in this game.
All right, Val. I'm going to take Bengals Steelers here. I personally am going to take the Bengals by at least 17. I just think they're the more talented team, and I think that their offense could potentially explode even without Jamar Chase.
Bengals score a lot, but they hold the Steelers to little points. Wow, that water I'm choking on. But yeah, going back to the Cowboys, I think the Vikings come from behind. I think it's a close game, but for me, it's more about the Cowboys going downhill. Perfect. Chiefs Chargers Sunday Night Football. Brandon, who you got?
I got Kansas City. My Chargers because they're my preseason pick, have been just awful, letting me down. The team hasn't let anyone down. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Herbert's gonna have another disappointing game too. I think the Chiefs cover the 5 points. Monday night, Brandon, Niners at Cardinals. Give me the Niners big. That's my team now from here on out.
Yeah, the Niners should win this game handily. Just really quickly, some teams that are on bye: Dolphins, Seahawks, Buccaneers, and Jaguars.
Last one, Brandon. Our Bears in Atlanta. Let's end the week with this. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. I don't want us to win games. I think this would be a good one to win. I think getting up to 5 wins, beating Atlanta here in Fields' hometown, beating Green Bay later in the season is going to work out for us. Atlanta's a better team. I think we beat them behind another big game from Fields, and that's what it's going to come down to. If he could get over 100 rushing yards again, we win.
I'm predicting a Bears win here as well. I think this one we can actually win handily. I think that there's a chance we win this game by 10.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Watch our Fantasy and World Cup clips. We might have an NBA video soon, and next week we're on the road.
Yep. Thank you for checking us out. Make sure to like and subscribe and share. Thanks.